I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation.
What makes Attack on Titan's lore one of the more fascinating in anime is the concept of Ymir, specifically how she embodies the black struggle. I understand that Isayama may not have had black people in mind when creating AOT, but as a myself, and with it still being Black History Month at the time of this recording, I couldn't help but notice the striking similarities between the Eldians and the global black trauma bar for bar. And who not better to talk about than the originator herself, the original Titan. Welcome to Ymir Fritz. It all stems back to slavery. Before we can fully analyze Ymir and connect her to the black struggle, we have to understand the psychological and historical factors of slave conditioning, because these are the foundation of the traumas experienced by both the Eldians in fiction and black people worldwide. The early black abolitionist Frederick Douglass once explained, "I have observed this in my experience of slavery, that whenever my condition was improved, instead of it increasing my contentment, it only increased my desire to be free, and set me to thinking of plans to gain my own freedom. I have found that to make a contented slave, it is necessary to make a thoughtless one." During the peak years of American slavery, it was normal for enslaved black families to be separated continually. Gatherings among black slaves were often prohibited. Anti-literacy laws were put in place to prevent slaves from becoming educated. Public whippings, mutilations, and humiliation rituals were enforced whenever someone stepped out of line. A key component of conditioning set by oppressors is the need to reduce forward thinking and create dependency on the status quo, leading to a learned helplessness sentiment among the people. When we look at Ymir's initial enslavement, early Eldia led by King Fritz destroyed Ymir's village, cut out everyone's tongues, and treated them like property. Before Ymir attained Titan powers, she was hunted like a dog. After enslaving her, taking her in as a concubine, setting her to die, and exploiting her Titan powers, Ymir gladly dies for King Fritz, and through the past serves the royal bloodline for 2,000 years. One of the more disturbing aspects of Ymir's character is her love for King Fritz. Although off-putting, it is consistent with slave conditioning. Think of Stephen from Django Unchained. Although his people are continually oppressed and brutalized, he disregards that and finds joy in serving Candyland. When we look at black history, one of the largest roadblocks to real liberation are those who side with the oppressor over their own people. In earlier times, these were black anti-abolitionists. In modern times, they can be black people who sympathize with white supremacy, participating in online discourse that paints black people negatively while absolving oppressors of their bigoted double standards. This is validation seeking by the oppressed towards the oppressors. Ymir's love for King Fritz has nothing to do with genuine romantic affection. It's an intense sense of validation seeking, with her family killed and no real positive reinforcement. When she receives attention from King Fritz, she may interpret it as care, when in reality, King Fritz is just using her Titan powers. The exploitation of the oppressed is nothing new. Frederick Douglass once explained, "No people can be found to respect the laws under which they live when those laws are made instruments of oppression and robbery." The relation of master and slave was a relation of robbery. The slave was a working man, robbed of his wages. He was compelled to work without pay and robbed of the fruits of his labor. Working on cotton, tobacco, rice, and sugar plantations generated enormous wealth for the US, especially in the South. This wealth financed infrastructure, banking, industry, and trade. Northern states indirectly benefited through shipping, textile manufacturing, and commerce linked to southern agriculture. Cities like New York, Boston, and Charleston grew wealthy from shipping and trading goods produced by enslaved labor. Modern financial institutions, insurance companies, and ports still trace early capital and infrastructure to profits derived from slavery, making the US a major exporter of raw materials and connecting it to global industrialization. The largest argument for reparations in the black American community is the physical labor of black slaves that helped create the superpower the US is today. As it relates to Ymir, exploiting her Titan powers is what made Eldia the dominant nation in its time, just as Marley uses the power of the 9 Titans to further its agenda. At the beginning of Season 4 of Attack on Titan, we truly understand how the world views the subjects of Ymir. The Marleyan military is mostly Marleyan, with a few Eldians inheriting the Titan powers. Eldians are feared for their power, but that same power is used to maintain Marley's dominance. Marley's dual sense of disgust and necessity toward Eldians drive the point perfectly. Eldians are not people, they are tools, a means to further the ambitions of those who subjugate them. Characters like Gabby, who fantasized about becoming a Titan to fight for Eldian rights, serving the royal family, show that these people are never humanized, they are instrumentalized. Through propaganda, the Marleyan entitlement to using Eldians relates to the black struggle more than you think.
ヒスタリアもこの子が好きでしょ？いつも他の人を思いやってる優しい子だからね。
Before we learned the truth behind Ymir obtaining her Titan powers, we had a popular conception of who Ymir was. The person who inherited the power of the Titans from the devil himself. That's why the Marleyans call Eldians the devil's subjects. Even though this story is complete propaganda to oppress and control Eldians, it perfectly represents a real struggle the black community faces. Supremacist false logic. When you look at political discourse online, especially for black people and other marginalized groups, there's a need by supremacists to solidify their bigotry. These include talking points like, black people commit 50% of the crime in America, immigrants are drug-infested criminals seeking to set up shop in America, women are on average more emotional than men. These statements, backed by cherry-picked statistics, serve nothing more than creating a sense of entitlement to treat others poorly. They make selfish emotions and baseless ideals seem reasonable. This is exactly what happens in Marley. The story depicting Ymir as a devilish creature serves only to justify the superiority of the Marleyans. In both cases, evidence doesn't create sentiment. Sentiment is created and evidence is cherry-picked to support it.
このユミル様こそ真に王の血を継ぐ存在。ユミル様がおられる限り、我らは永遠に不滅だ。
As it relates to Ymir, we have to look at the backstory of the original Ymir we meet in AOT. She was an Eldian chosen by a cult to become a figurehead of worship. After being discovered by the Marley government, she was turned into a mindless Titan and sent to Paradis, where she ate the previous Jaw Titan. This false version of Ymir represents the apotheosis of the black community, turning popular black figures into godlike saviors who can do no wrong, creating the sole black savior effect. However, just like with this Ymir, this sentiment is built on a house of cards. One person cannot liberate a group of people. A unified effort by the people, for the people, through intellectual discourse, intentional voting, strategic unity, and more, is what truly pushes the needle forward. And just like Ymir Fritz, we can all be relieved of the shackles of slavery. At the end of the day, Ymir Fritz embodies the black struggle in a few key ways. The brutal reality of the psychological shackles of slavery and how its effects persist today. The material exploitation of her and her people, combining instrumentalization and demonization. The false sense of inferiority created by oppressors. The glorifying of ordinary people to represent liberation. But that's what I think. If you think differently, let me know down in the comments. Once again, my name is AOI-KUN, and this is my synopsis.